What tactical mistakes have you learned from over there that you were making that now you've learned from and you've changed your approach?
I was actually just talking to Serge Powell's on our training ride about this today. Yeah, it's crazy because you think, when you're in the heat of the moment and you're feeling really good, but you still probably have 40 to an hour worth of racing left. Like those last couple matches in the last lap, those real big attacks, those real big surges, those are when you need to have the sugars. That's when you need to be like the man.
Mm.
And I would think I did a lot of learning. I would ride too hard, or I would try to like not flex, but show like I'm the guy here. And I would like pull through maybe for an extra 20 seconds, like handfuls of times. And that 20 seconds is now 5 minutes at over threshold, or over, 130, 140, 150% of threshold. And you're just cooking yourself. And you just don't have those 2 or 3 matches in the last lap when you watching those guys just ride away, and they're not going harder. They just have that extra percent that you burned 4 or 5 laps ago. And it's just like, I just want to rip my hair out, because I was like, I was the best guy here. Like everyone knew it. That's, but I had an ego, and I let myself, get ahead of myself. And I stopped riding like a machine and started riding like a human. And let the human aspect take my brain over and ruin a lot of opportunities. So when you start to watch yourself slipping out of your hands, you need to be like, come back here, stop that. You're the best guy here, and everyone knows it. So just let them try to drop you, and you don't need to drop them. You've already made the last critical move. You just need to make it to the line now.
Yeah. Amber, did you come across any, like when you went over to Europe, tactical mistakes that just stand out to you that you were like, man, I really need to stop making these sort of efforts? And Pete, will end up getting the same question for you, but tactical mistakes.
For me, it was 100% about positioning, because like we were talking about earlier, it's such a different beast when you're positioning in a European peloton versus in the US. And then it was very frustrating because I'd get the hang of it in the Italian peloton in Italy, and then we'd go up and race in Belgium, and it would be a completely different story again. So that was, for me, that was the big lesson, was getting a handle on being able to position within different dynamics, right? Because there's the dynamic among the riders, and then there's how the dynamic among the riders plays out on a specific terrain. And those are two kind of interactive factors that come together to create like the whole, I don't know, environment of the race. And so figuring those out was like such a steep learning curve. It was really frustrating. And what was most frustrating was like the better you get, the more aware of your mistakes you become. And you get to this point where you actually can feel it as it's happening, and you're like, no. And it's so frustrating because you start to feel like you're getting worse as an athlete, but actually that awareness, it means you're getting better, that when you become more aware of these mistakes. And eventually you get so good that you become aware of them and you can fix them as they're happening, or then even before they're happening. But it's a very frustrating process.
When you say getting good at positioning, what do you specifically do better when you're good at positioning? Like, cause that's one thing a lot of people are like, okay, just be in the right position. So then they're going to try to do that, and they're just going to blow themselves up, right? Because they're like pedaling so hard to try to stay third wheel or something.
Right. Just be in the right position. It's really, it depends on the situation. It's very contextual. So ideally you want to be in a position where you can access the front. So you are in a position to respond if something happens in the race. You're in a position to see what's happening in the race so that you can see if you need to respond, and be in a position where you can see what's happening. You can respond if you need to, but you're not in the wind. And then even better if that spot is not a spot that's being constantly contested, because that's another mental drain, is like constantly defending your position. And sometimes you can find like a sweet little spot where you can kind of sit for a while, but it's very rare. But eventually that cognitive load of fighting for and protecting a spot will come down. And it's less about protecting a certain place and more about just constant. It's almost like you're living in negative space. Instead of being aware of the riders and the road, you're aware of the space between them, and like you're just living in that space. So the second like just a little tiny crack of negative space opens up, you're in it. And you start to realize, I think Eamon, you mentioned this earlier too, like you can fit in really tiny spaces that you did not know that you could.
Yeah, I'm a big dude.
Yeah. And then you're like, whoa, I can actually be there and it's fine and it's safe. And then that opens up this whole world of doing that. But it takes a lot of skills. So this isn't something that you just go out and say like, oh, I should be able to squeeze into a smaller space than I think I can. Like, don't start there. Don't start there. But you do want to start to like think about, where would be a good place for you to be, where you could access and respond if you need to, but you can still be out of the wind. It's not always third wheel. And it depends on where you are in the race too. If it's really early on and you don't have a selection point coming up anytime soon, like maybe you want to drift a little further back, grab a bite to eat. You don't want to be up in the front where people are kind of like surging and slowing. It's contextual and it takes a lot of experience, and it depends on the field too. Like, who's there? How big is the field? How long is the race? These are just things that you learn with time and experience.
So Amber, what you just mentioned there is interesting because a lot of people chalk up the good positioning thing up to like talent, or they just kind of put it in this black box of experience. Oh, they're experienced, so they're good at it. But you just really kind of broke it down as far as being in the right position to really be aware of the race, but not be driving the race and not be paying the price to be up there. And that's that's something that I've noticed that racing, I can't say I've ever really seen Eamon race because he's at the front and I'm off the back. But with Pete, I've noticed this is Pete seemed at times I'm like, how did he know that was going to happen? Like, it's amazing. Like Pete seems to have this intuition, but it's because he does those things that you're talking about, Amber, so well. It's that always being able to read the race and put yourself in a position to read it. And of course, having that huge database of experience to be able to, use and to roll with. But Pete, what tactical mistakes do you make? Because you kind of like what Eamon said. Eamon likes to bring the race out rather than wait for the race to develop. And you are absolutely that sort of racer. Like, you do not like sitting at the back. You don't like waiting for the race to unfold. So what tactical mistakes have you made and learned from?
And I've kind of always been that way, and Eamon's definitely always been that way, which was pretty fun. I enjoy people that like to grab the race by the scruff of the neck. It's a good time. But I think it took me the biggest challenge I faced for a long time, and it was a couple of years for me to do this, was figure out that there's a possibility to use less power and stay in the race, like at a very basic level, like pedal less, brake a little less, just be more efficient, be more smooth. And what you want to do is, instead of leaning into the front of the race and always stretching things out and pedaling a little harder than everybody else and showing that you're strong, it took me, dozens, hundreds of races to figure this out, that you can do less work and still be in great position. You can always be you always have a lot in reserve if you're doing the bare minimum to stay with the front of the race or the breakaway or something like that. And then all of a sudden, for most people, it's only a handful of percentage points that the front of the race is different by fitness wise. So if you can be kind of just that little bit smarter and a little bit more efficient and read the race a little better, and it's just these micro transactions that are slightly less, and you coast a little sooner. But it took me so long to figure out that I used to talk about like, oh, my normalized power was so high for that race. That was awesome. And my teammates are like, you're an idiot. Like, you didn't have to do that. You could have pedaled so much less and been in the exact same spot. And then you would have so much more at the end. And for a lot of people, it's just a percentage point or two. You're going to feel way different after an hour of racing if you're just a couple percent off. And so the way I think about it is, what's the bare minimum you can do to be where you want to be, instead of, I'm going to lean a little forward, I'm going to pedal a little more, I'm going to take slightly longer pulls and like push the front of the race. You want to just barely hang out at the kind of your bare position that you're happy with being, and do even slightly less, because since you have more in reserve, you always have the ability to kind of do the extra effort to get back into where you need to be. And for me, it was really noticeable that sometimes things happen and you have to make a huge effort and you go, oh yeah, that was a bad call. I definitely drifted too far back and that was a bad place to do it. But the majority of the time, you're saving more energy overall. So it does cost more occasionally, but overall you're going to save more energy over the course of the race or the breakaway or whatever's happening. and reminding yourself in all those times where what's the bare minimum I can do and still be here changes the way you think about just about everything. And that was, like I said, it took me years, but it makes a big difference on how you feel at the end of the race, which is really what we're always after, or whenever that crux happens and something, it's up to you to make it happen.
If you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up.
If you didn't like this video, you can give it a thumbs down, but let us know what you would have done differently in the comments below.
If you want to see more of these videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, check out TrainerRoad.com.
Do it.
If you think I have better hair than Jonathan, give it a thumbs up. If not, leave a comment.
My hair is better than his.